Tavakatamritam tapta jivanam kavibiriditam kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadaatatam Bhuvi Krinanti Ye Bhurita Janaha. Thy words of immortality, full of divine glories. Praised by sages, they destroy the threefold miseries of life as well as sins. Those who spread thy word, O Lord, are the greatest benefactors of this world. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Master and Disciple, page 85. We had seen in the last class something as everything is God, yes. At the same time, we must be cognizant of the differences we find in this external world. Some reflect more of God, some reflect less. That reminds me also, like Shankaracharya said, Bhavadvaitam sada kuryat, kriyadvaitam na kuryat. That look into the soul and see that oneness. At the same time, maintaining the distinction between subject, object, I, you, etc. As we've seen, M has come for his third visit, and he's sitting quietly in the corner because he's not acquainted with the rest of the devotees. He's listening to the conversation. A devotee asks, Sir, if a wicked person is about to do harm, or actually does so, should we keep quiet then? It's a very significant question also. The Master says, a person living in society should make a show of tamas to protect oneself from evil-minded people. But one should not harm anybody in anticipation of harm likely to be done to him. Now, often it is seen that devotees are considered to be soft targets. They are soft. And to react is going against the grain of spirituality. At the same time, Swami Vivekananda also said, resist not evil, quoting the Bible. Then he says, one must resist all evils, physical and mental. And when one has resisted, then will calmness come. Otherwise, it will be just a show of non-resistance. It will be done out of weakness. So one must be strong. And we've seen a couple of examples also in the Gospel, which will come later, that he scolds Yogin Maharaj for being too soft. He also scolds Balram Bose for being too soft. Balram Bose had that great, you can say, dilemma, whether he should kill the mosquitoes that are stinging him. And he wanted to find an answer for this. And he comes to Sri Ramakrishna, and he finds Sri Ramakrishna, he's killing bed bugs out there. So, and Sri Ramakrishna is saying, you see, they constantly bite me and that take my mind away from God. So I'm kind of taking them away from. So he got his answer there. He scolded Yogananda because he's saying there were those insects, cockroaches, and he told them, go out dust all those things and kill them. And he was so soft, and he goes and dusts the clothes, of course, but the cockroaches all escape. Spirituality is not meant for the docile. Spirituality and religion is meant for the strong, the brave, the heroic. And so, at the same time, Swamiji says, one must have the power to strike straight from the shoulder. But if one resists that power, then there is a, you can say, benefit of non-resistance. So Sri Ramakrishna, he said, in answer to this question, he says, listen to a story. It's a parable. Now there are teachings within the parable. And the very famous, you can say, parable which a lot of people quote, that one must hiss but not bite. One must make a show of anger to protect oneself. So he says, some cowherd boys used to tend their cows in a meadow where a terrible poisonous snake lived. And the boys were afraid to go out there in the meadow. So one day they found a brahmachari. A brahmachari is a novice. He's going along that same path. And they said, revered sir, please don't go that way. A venomous snake lives out there. What of it, my good children, said the brahmachari. I am not afraid of the snake. I know some mantras. Now there are the various types of mantras to cure various types of things, etc., etc. And to put a spell on. So saying, he continued on his way along the meadow. But the cowherd boys, being afraid, did not accompany him. In the meantime, the snake moved swiftly towards him with upraised hood. As soon as it came near, the brahmachari, recited a mantra, and the snake lay at his feet like an earthworm. That was the power of the mantra. Now imagine, even a small mantra like this to make a snake docile or to disable it has this effect. And imagine if you have the mantra with the word of God, how powerful it is. And what are we doing? In fact, we are going and becoming docile, and that is a big problem. It should have made us strong. The brahmachari said, look here, why do you go about doing harm? Come, I will give you a holy word. By repeating it, you will learn to love God. Ultimately, you will realize Him and so get rid of your violent nature. Now, this is also important. I'm going to initiate you, in other words. By repeating that mantra that one has been initiated with, you will learn to love God. Because the mantra is the word of God or the name of God, a particular deity. And as you keep on repeating over and over and over again, you start developing that love for God. It's like a seed that's thrown in the ground and which is germinating slowly. Then he says, ultimately you will realize Him and so get rid of your violent nature. So this is how you realize the highest. You get a mantra, get initiated, keep on repeating it, of course. And after years and years of repeating it, then the mantra repeats itself. And that is what is important. That means there is something called the awakening of the mantra. The mantra is awakened. It's called mantra chaitanya. Generally, they say that it takes 100,000 repetitions for the mantra to be awakened. But also Patanjali says one must repeat the mantra with great devotion and faith. So, and thinking of its meaning. So the meaning is, it is a sound symbol of God, and you meditate on the image, the visual image, and slowly the mantra has the power to do this, to give you the realization of God. It is the power of the whole universe, if you can say. The entire universe has come out of certain mantras. So the snake bowed down before the teacher and said, "Revered sir, how shall I practice spiritual discipline?" Then he said, "Repeat that sacred word." There it is. This is the easiest and the most efficacious means for this age. And the teacher said, "And do no harm to anybody." As he was about to depart, the brahmachari said, "I shall see you again." Some days passed and the boys noticed that the snake had become docile and it wasn't terrorizing the boys in the meadow. And so one of them boldly caught it by its tail, swung it and hit it on the ground. The snake vomited blood and became unconscious. It was stunned. It could not move. So thinking it dead, the boys went their way. Late at night, the snake regained consciousness. Slowly and with great difficulty, it dragged itself into its hole. Its bones were broken and it could scarcely move. Many days passed, the snake became a mere skeleton covered with skin. So now and then, it would leave its abode, eat something, maybe leaves or some fruits, and come back. Since receiving the sacred word from the teacher, it had given up doing harm to others. It maintained its life on dirt, leaves, or fruit that dropped from the trees. About a year later, the brahmachari came that way again and asked after the snake. The coward boys told him what had happened. It's dead. Now this is a very significant answer that the brahmachari gives, saying it's not possible, because he's saying the snake would not die before attaining the fruit of the holy word with which it had been initiated. This mantra which one receives will not die till you attain illumination. And what the mantra does, in order to protect itself, it protects the body and mind of the devotee, the one who's repeating it. So that's why people say, "Oh, I am vulnerable, I am sick, I'm lonely, I'm this and that." Why? You have the mantra. That mantra is protecting you. Oh, really? Oh, yes. It's not going to leave you unprotected. It's going to protect you, and it will see that it will attain illumination. It will find its culmination in realization. If you don't get it in this life, it's going to get revived in your next life. So better do it in this life only. Generally, then what happens, like there are people who are born and they get a dream or somehow they receive a vision of the mantra. It was an old mantra which was yet to be fulfilled. It comes to you. So the mantra protects one. It protects your spirituality. It leads you ultimately to spiritual growth and illumination. So the brahmachari was sure the snake can die. It won't die because it has received the mantra. So The brahmachari found his way to the place, and searching here and there called it out by its name he had given him before with great reverence. "How are you?" asked the brahmachari. "I am well, sir," replied the snake. "But," the teacher said, "why are you so thin?" The snake replied, "Revered sir, you ordered me not to harm anybody, so I have been living only on leaves and fruit. Perhaps that has made me thinner." Obviously, But then, Sri Ramakrishna continuing say, the snake had developed the quality of sattva. It could not be angry with anyone. This is the quality of sattva. It broadens one. It's all just light and love and illumination. All that hate and anger and envy, these are the lowest modifications of Prakriti, of nature, which have to be transcended. So it had totally forgotten that the cowherd boys had almost killed it. The brahmachari said, "It can be mere want of food that has reduced you to this state. There must be some other reason. Think about it a little." Then the snake remembered that the boys had dashed it against the ground. So the memory is revived, but not with that same intensity. Now it's just an old memory. All the trauma has gone away. People suffer from all kinds of trauma and all sorts of bad memories and gives you nightmares. Best thing, develop the quality of sattva. So those memories will be there, but they will be harmless. They will not traumatize you. Then he says, the snake said, "Yes, revered sir, now I remember the boys one day dashed me violently against the ground, but they are ignorant after all. They didn't realize what a great change had come over my mind." This is another thing. As you keep on repeating the mantra, your mind will change. Not only your mind will change, your body will change. Externally, a little. Internally, the body becomes pure. And this is the standard belief for those who get initiated or those who want to get initiation. The mantra purifies the body. The mantra purifies the mind. Continuing, how could they know that I wouldn't bite or harm anyone? The brahmachari exclaimed, "What a shame! You are such a fool." Now, the snake must have been thinking, I've reached the heights of spirituality by being non-resistant. You don't know how to protect yourself. Here it is. Is this a practical wisdom? I asked you not to bite, but I didn't forbid you to hiss. Why didn't you scare them by hissing? So you must hiss at wicked people. You must frighten them at least. They should do you no harm. But never inject your venom into them. One must not injure others. So this is a principle of ahimsa, non-injury. But at the same time, don't be a fool. Don't be taken advantage of every person. And devotees are like that, very gullible. Somebody comes and promises this, and yeah. And somebody comes like this and promises that, they run after this. The devotee will not run after promises. The devotee will not run after claims. That makes that devotee gullible. So Sri Ramakrishna also says, one must be a devotee, but one must not be a fool. Bhakta hote hobe, boka noy. So once you understand this, then it becomes clear that one must be able to protect oneself. Just because you're initiated in a devotee and your goal is beyond the universe and beyond the world and beyond our worldliness, that does not mean that, oh, you've got to be soft. So this is one great lesson that Sri Ramakrishna says. Then he says, in this creation of God, there is a variety of things. Men, animals, trees, plants. Among the animals, some are good, some are bad. There are ferocious animals like the tiger. Some trees bear fruit, some sweet as nectar, and the others bear fruit that is poisonous. Likewise, among human beings, there are good and the wicked, the holy and the unholy. There are some who are devoted to God and others who are attached to the world. So this is now clear that there will be differentiation. The world means differentiation. But at the heart of the world is that oneness. There is just water in the Pacific Ocean, and there are also waves. The waves are there, but the waves are composed of the water also. So the world means differentiation. There are no two things which are similar in this world. Cannot be. There cannot be anything identical. Physically, you might see a similarity, but in the mind, there is a huge difference. No two things are similar. And this is the world of the many. But then you say, why did God do all this? Why did He create? That is the plan of creation. You don't have to ask the Creator. The Creator knows things much better than what we know. One time, Swami Vivekananda, quoting John Stuart Mill, saying, this is the devil's world. I could have created a better world. And Sri Ramakrishna looked at him saying, sharply, saying, how much of the world do you know to say such a thing? And Swamiji once was in great crisis. They were thrown out of the house. He had no job. He had nothing. His family was starving. He was starving. He was going around looking for a job. And one day when he was extremely tired, this question was, why in the realm of a benevolent God such things have to exist? There was a series of unpleasant things that had led him to abandon the idea that, is there a God in this world? So this question was haunting him, and one day he was so overcome with weakness, he fainted in a porch outside a house. It had rained, and then he, in that state of external unconsciousness, he says, veil after veil covering my soul was taken out, and I saw the necessity of this world of duality. So he got up, he got his answers from within, and he got up refreshed. So there are answers, but it won't be on the intellectual or the rational or the emotional level. There are much deeper levels of the soul where you will get an answer for this. But while you do get that answer, it's better to listen to Sri Ramakrishna and say, to avoid the bad and stay with the good. Then he further classifies things. Men may be divided into 4 classes: those bound by the fetters of the world, the seekers of liberation, the liberated, and the ever free. Now, these are the 4 classes of people. Now we know the ever free, they are very far and few in between. The liberated, the Jivan Muktas. The seekers after liberation, Mumukshu, that is those who seek liberation. And those bound by the fetters of the world. It could take it like as a kind of a pyramid system, structure. So we need to find out in which class do we fall. There are just 2 classes for us, the bound and the struggling for liberation. And those who are lucky, the liberated in life. The ever free category is simply out of the question for us, because those are born not because of karma. They are born to remove other people's karma. So these are the ever free. So he says, among the ever free, we may count sages like Narada. They live in the world for the good of others to teach men spiritual truth. Now he gives the example of Narada, and there are many sages, and Hanuman, etc., etc. You can count also the avatars and those who come along with the avatar. So you can take the 6 Nitya Siddhas, the ever perfect, Swami Vivekananda, Swami Brahmananda, Swami Niranjanananda, and then we have Swami Premananda, and then we have Purna Chandra Ghosh. All these, they were the ever free. They had come as associates, though they come to do good to the world. Holy Mother is the power of Sri Ramakrishna. So they say, they live in the world for the good of others to teach people spiritual truths. So these are the ever free souls. Those in bondage are sunk in worldliness and forgetful of God. Not even by mistake do they think of God. This is true. These are statements that ring so true. So not even by mistake that they will think of God. So these are the bound souls. They think they are sunk in worldliness. And worldliness makes us forgetful of God. The seekers after liberation. Now these are the mumukshu. Those who want to get liberated. Want to free themselves from attachment to the world. Some of them succeed and others do not. Obviously. As the Bhagavad Gita says, out of 1,000 people, some desire to know me. And out of the thousands of those striving to know me, few know me in reality. So it's not that a huge crowd is there, that they are all seeking the truth, and some of them succeed, some of them. Now, truth has to be understood as absolute truth, not relative truths. Sometimes lies masquerade as truth, or the unreal appears as real. So we must be very careful about what is true, what is truth, and that will make us or inspire us to attain that, to be one with it. To search for truth is to become one with that truth. And many people are there who will say, I am teaching the truth. I am here, I am there, I am here. This is what I teach. This is the truth, and this is the truth, and this is the truth. And people have been proclaiming their own brand of truths. So people are also at times misled by these. So the seeker after liberation wants to free themselves from attachment to the world. Some of them succeed. So they are struggling to get rid of the attachment to the world, but they must have a very clear idea of the truth. Otherwise, you will not be able to extricate yourself from the world. Sri Ramakrishna says, as you go towards the west, the east falls behind by itself. So you don't have to do two things. Otherwise it will be ridiculous. You're going towards the west and then, that automatically saves you from the east. You're distancing yourself from it. So the more you go towards the truth, the more you will leave behind worldliness. But then again, your conception of truth has to be perfect. They're saying the liberated souls, such as the sadhus and the mahatmas. Sadhus are monks and mahatmas are great souls, are not entangled in the world. Their minds are free from worldliness. Besides, they always meditate on the lotus feet of God. This is the difference between what? Liberated souls and those who are struggling for liberated. So as you struggle for liberation, you come to a point where you can be something like this, the liberated souls. They are no more entangled in the world, in lust and greed. Their minds are free from worldliness. So what's the sign of this? You will find Sri Ramakrishna saying, these people, they are very, as they say, he used the word saral. That is not naive, but innocent. They are simple. The word saral would be very simple. These people are very simple. They don't have, as Sri Ramakrishna had pointed out, mon mukh ek kara. That is, your speech and your mind should be one. There is no simulation. There is no hypocrisy. They are very transparent. And this is what is the sign of people who are free from worldliness. And they say, their minds are free from worldliness. Besides, they always meditate on the lotus feet of God. Once you have disentangled yourself from that worldliness, then the mind becomes free to meditate on God. It is automatic. I mean, at the deeper levels of the mind wants to go towards that place. But it is held back by these kind of worldly tendencies, worldly thoughts and worldly impressions. The moment the mind becomes free from worldliness, it will come straight and meditate on God. He gives another illustration to define these four classes of people. Suppose a net has been cast into a lake to catch fish. Some fish are so clever that they are never caught in the net. They are like the ever-free, the Nitya Siddhas. But most of the fish are entangled in the net. Some of them try to free themselves from it, and they are like those who seek liberation. So those who seek liberation are trying to break free. But not all the fish that struggle succeed. That is another thing. Otherwise, it's a patent fact that there is a huge rush of people wanting for liberation, but few succeed. So should we stop struggling? No, you've got to keep on struggling. There is another element which Ramakrishna will later point out, the element of grace. The more you struggle, the more grace dawns upon you. Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of you unfurl the sails and the breeze of grace which is always blowing will be caught in the sails and help you move forward. But you must be able to unfurl the sail. Sitting down and saying, oh God, help me. That's not going to help. So this is how you can say, as you struggle, then comes the grace. A very few do jump out of the net, making a big splash in the water. Then the fishermen shout, "Look, there goes the big one, there." So you be a big fish, and there goes the big one. But most of the fish caught in the net cannot escape, nor do they make any effort to get out. And this is also significant. They will give you some great philosophies of why there is no noumenon or the absolute, or there's a spiritual world, or there's a God or nothing. They will give you all the arguments, and so well thought out, reasoned, rational arguments that will convince every other guy, justifying their own state of bondage. So he says, on the contrary, they burrow into the mud with the net in their mouth and lie there quietly thinking, we need not fear anymore, we are quite safe here. But the poor things do not know that the fishermen will drag them out with a net. These are like the people bound to the world. This is Baddha Jiva. So, and you can see there are teeming. They are teeming everywhere. It is only saying the few who will try to pull themselves out. And those who pull themselves out on the path to create freedom and liberation and joy and peace. Because the more you serve the world, the more the world will burn you. The more you serve God, the more life will be blessed. This is how we need to approach these teachings. So to recap, we find that Sri Ramakrishna is giving ideal advice to avoid conflict and to have the proper attitude of a spiritual aspirant towards all classes of people. And then saying this is the nature of the world. There will be differentiation. However similar these two chairs look, on closer scrutiny, there will be differences. So some are at the edge of the poles, extreme right and extreme left. So we need to try to bring, one needs to come towards the center. And that will stabilize everything. So we need to stay away from the evil-minded. Not to hate them, as I said again, for your own protection. This is important. People will tell you all sorts of things. Take what is true, analyze it, and don't buckle under their materialistic arguments. So one must be able to be equipped strongly with truth. So that is the reason why one needs to have a clear conception of what is truth. And how do you get the clear conception of what is truth? It's simple, very simple. Read the Gospel. You'll get the truth. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Those online can type in their questions. Those who are here can ask questions. And if there are no questions, we can, before we leave, on Friday evening, 7 p.m., there will be the second part of Golap Ma, the householder disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, Golap Ma. On Sunday, we have a talk on the life and the state of the Buddha, the immeasurable Buddha. Because the next month we have his birthday coming up, called Buddha Purnima. So this will be in kind of anticipation of his birthday. And it's called a thrice blessed day. He was born on that day, he attained nirvana on that day, and he gave up his body, that's the parinirvana, on that very day. So that's why it's called a thrice blessed day. So we'll see the immeasurable Buddha. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.